Hi, this is now being recorded with a camera that I forgot I had for a while ago. I bought this camera to go to Iceland and take some nice pictures, and it can also film, although the audio is being recorded by a different external mic because usually the audio on these cameras are not great. But I thought I would use it for making an update video because it's been a while since I've made a video, and there are a couple of things that I want to update you guys about. If you've been following anything at all, of course, from my previous videos, and if not, then hi, just a random person here on the internet making another video because we don't have too many of those yet. So there's a couple things. I'm going to list them out in order of least important to most important, and I'm going to try to have the video time stamped, like how it's like chapter things you can do. These days you can look up the chapters on the play bar in the video if chapters are enabled, and hopefully it'll do that automatically if I just go and put title cards in between each chapter, and if not, then I'll do it manually. Either way, I want to talk about my hair first of all, and second topic is going to be work changing, and the third topic is my dad, to see how he's doing right now. So the hair, I can be pretty quick about that. I'm just kind of tired of dyeing it all the time because my hair has been going slowly gray since I was about 25. First gray hairs already kind of like all over the place. By then it wasn't quite noticeable yet because it was still like able to be counted, the number of gray hairs. But that slowly went grayer and grayer, and then I started dyeing my hair. First I had the salon do that because I wasn't very confident doing that myself. And then I went and did it myself at home with box dyes. So I've been doing that for about, I want to say 18 years now, if I'm correct. So that's been a long time, and I'm just kind of done with it. I'm only 43, so a lot of people probably think that's too early to go gray. But I'm just like, you know what, I'm tired and I wanted to go gray so I don't have to dye it anymore. Initially, I went and just had it go gray on its own. And so I had the whole thing going on here. And I was just kind of root spraying it to keep it from being too terrible. The plan was to just cover up the growing area with root spray until it was long enough for me to cut it or have it cut into a short haircut, and then that would be it, so to speak. But now with the new job going on, they want everybody to look super professional, so I can't really do that because even though root spray does kind of cover it, you do see things. If there's just the slightest breeze, any hair pops up because of the wind, that you'll see a whole bunch of gray underneath, and it looks really bad. So I decided to do something different. I'm going to dye it a slightly lighter color each time. Like normally I picked like a middle brown color, like a hazelnut or something, whatever you want to call that. Each color has its own name, and each brand has its own list of color names. Anyway, so kind of like a mid-brown color is what I usually colored it. That's like my original color. But now I've put in a dark blonde color, so you can kind of see that up here. There's some highlights there that are just because that hair was already gray, and now I've put like a dark blonde on it. And then each time that I've got enough gray hair growing out, I'm going to go ahead and put a lighter color blonde in there, and then try to make it so gradual. And of course I'm going to keep cutting the length off as soon as that's done. And then eventually you'll have like a whole gradient here with like the darkest colors here and the light colors up here. And then the plan is that eventually I'll have such a light color dye on the roots that the roots that come out after that don't even really look any different from the hair itself, and then eventually it'll just grow out like that, and it won't be such a huge shock, and I won't have to feel like people are looking at me because my hair is showing gray in certain areas. So that is the hair thing. Just wanted to say that it's not really something that you would notice if you like play games with me online. It's not really very important, but I thought I would mention it anyway because if I do make more videos in the future, you'll notice that my hair color is changing, and now I know why. So that's part one out of the way. So part two is the work situation. I used to work at a place that's about technically half an hour away from where I live, but I don't go across the highway in order to get there. I like to go in the little byways. So that's about a 45-minute drive from where I'm at right now. And they were going to give me a contract for a new project for next year, but the overall situation at that place of work, well, I really liked all the coworkers there. There just weren't any future prospects. Some people really like that. They can just show up at the job and they know exactly what's expected. They do their thing and then they go home. But I'm somebody who likes to grow and do new things. And if you put me in a room with a bunch of other people that do like different work, I'm going to start like thinking about what it is that they're doing. And maybe I can help with this, maybe I can help with that. And I'll do this project over here, which isn't technically part of my work description, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then kind of grow laterally, I guess. That's like a horizontal growth thing. And maybe eventually vertically if the company were open to that. But in any case, we weren't having any of that at the current company. So I'm going somewhere new, and it's actually kind of funny because the whole procedure around getting the job was very quick. Like I went looking on LinkedIn because somebody at the current place sent me a connection request, and I was like, who's this? Oh, yeah, it's that guy from work. Okay, I'll go on LinkedIn and accept it. And then I went on LinkedIn and I saw that somebody had sent me a message. I'm like, okay, who is this? And it turned out to be a recruiter from said company where I'm going to go. And I was like, oh, it's been a while since they sent me this message. Should I respond, or does that seem rude? Because it looks as though I've been ignoring them for several days now. And so I went and looked at the opening that they linked to, which was on their own website, and I read it through and I thought, oh, this is actually kind of what I'm looking for because it has growth potential and it's got all these new things that they're doing, and it's all like under development. And of course the base job that they described is exactly what I'm doing now. So I thought, oh, this is actually a nice thing. Let me apply to that. So I applied to that on a Monday morning. I want to say around 9 in the morning. And about 11 that same morning, I got a call from the same recruiter that had sent me a message several days previously. And they were like, oh, what do you like? And like we had this little typical recruiter talk, they want to know a little bit about you, and you tell them a bit about what you're doing and what you're looking for. They tell you a bit about the company, and then they go, interesting, and maybe you want to come and see us sometime to see if we're a good fit. So they invited me for a talk, an interview the week after, so the Monday after. So the Monday after, I go there, and it was 11 in the morning, I think, and it took about an hour, but it was a very interesting interview. I've had, of course, several interviews over my career, and usually it's a back and forth, like, what can you do for us? What are you good at? What would you say would be your good qualities? What would be your less qualities? Blah, blah, blah. But the entire talk was mostly about the type of work that they had and what future prospects they had in the company, because they were growing very quickly and they really needed people for certain things, and almost like trying to sell them on me. Of course, they did ask me a few questions. It's not like it was a complete one-way street, but it was like mostly them talking about what it is that they were going to do and what sort of people they were looking for and what sort of things they were going to be doing. And they were assuring me that there was going to be a lot of nice people there, of course, obviously, and that the stuff that I would be working with, the hardware, was going to be top-notch because they had all these applications going for like Adobe licenses, that sort of thing, like really trying to sell the work on me. So I left there around noon, and I came home around 1:30. I think I went to the store or something on the way back. And around 2 in the afternoon, I got a call from another recruiter from there, the one that I had in the conversation. And they were like, oh yeah, we thought it was a nice talk, and could you come back for a second interview? So that was already like the same day. They didn't have to think too much about it for the second interview. So they planned that for the Thursday after. And that day I talked to the HR manager and one of the other people that was there previously as well from the actual department itself. And also a nice conversation, just went a little bit deeper into like what we're actually going to be doing and what my qualifications were. And they like, one of the first questions that they asked was like, yeah, we kind of skipped over this, but could you tell us a little bit about you, like personally, like what's your living situation like and stuff like that. Like they completely forgot to ask me. Normally you like do an introduction thing on the first interview, like, oh, what's your living situation like, where do you live, kids, partners, pets, whatever you got, that type of thing, just the introduction thing, But we kind of skipped over that in the first interview, so we did that in the second interview. But okay, everything there was still fine, and they were already like, oh, well, if we're going to make an offer, which we probably will, probably won't be this week because it's already Thursday, and then we'll email you the week after. So I was like, okay, good, we'll see. So next week, after that, was Tuesday, and I got the email with the whole offer and stuff like that, and I was like, okay, just kind of, I looked through it, and then on Wednesday I made the decision to actually sign for it. And that meant that my current work ended at the end of June, so that's like at the end of this week. And then a new place, or I started a new place on July 1st, and of course the first work day is going to be Monday the 3rd, I believe. So that's going to be a different place. I'm hoping that's going to be very nice, and like I said, a whole new prospect, whole new challenge. Another thing about that though is that they are a little further away from where I live. And normally I drive about 45 minutes, like I said, to get to the current location. And now I think it's supposed to be roughly about the same amount of time, but the roads that I have to drive down are more likely to get traffic jams. So it's probably going to be more like 45 minutes to an hour each way. So that's why the streams on Tuesday and one on Thursday, which is going to now be moved from Friday, is going to be set to 6 p.m. I'm hoping that's going to be enough time, but we'll see about that. Next week I'll see how long it actually takes, and maybe we'll have to move it again, which is also because I tend to visit my dad on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I do that after work. So currently I would work from the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then on the way back home I would go past the care home and just sit with him for about an hour, and then I go home, so to speak. So now I'm going to go further away from home, and then when I come back I actually have to drive an extra 10 or so minutes in order to get to his care home. So I might need more than 30 minutes. I'm going to have to see how long exactly it takes, but we'll see about that. And so the Friday stream had to be moved to Thursday because at this new place they have I think a monthly Friday afternoon meeting that starts around 3:30 and lasts till about 5. So then I would at the earliest be able to leave at 5, and then I have to do the 45 minutes to an hour back home. So there would be no way that I would make it 5:30 then, and possibly not 6 o'clock either. So I had to move that to Thursday, and Thursday as well as Tuesday is going to be from 6 p.m. to 7. And I posted in Discord a couple message actually with a timestamp, like a timestamp code that should show the time and date in your local time and date setting. So that's hopefully the clearest way to communicate exactly when we're going to be having this stream. So if you're not sure about that, make sure to check on Discord when exactly that is. But it's going to be Tuesday, Thursday for now, and hopefully at 6. And if it's going to take longer than that to drive back and visit my dad, I might have to move it to 6:30, but we'll see about that. Bridge when we get there, I guess. Then on to my dad. I think the last video that I did on him, we had been putting up pictures in a picture frame, and she had made them disappear. She has... Well, they just disappeared entirely now. I haven't put new pictures up. She kept asking for us to put up recent photos, and I considered having a glamour shot photo taken so that I would look super great in this picture, and to make her super jealous, because she's really jealous of everybody who looks better than her, which is pretty much everybody. But okay, so that was like a thing that I thought might be fun to do, to kind of take a little jab at her. But of course, if I were to then comply by putting a new picture in there, that would mean that she could go ahead and demand more stuff. So I ultimately decided not to put pictures in there. The pictures that I did put in there were just copies of the original, so it's not like I've lost the actual original pictures of her family, but I did pretend that like those were the originals when my dad was like, oh yeah, those are just like, they're not super important. And I'm like, well, can't retake them because those were taken on a camera in the 80s and I don't have the film anymore, hoping that he would kind of forward that to her and that she might somehow make them reappear somewhere, because I'm pretty sure she's the one who took them out of the frame, because my dad doesn't actually normally interact with stuff in his room much. He has done a couple of things that's kind of fun. I'll make sure to tell you about that. But yeah, so now the only thing that's in the picture frame is the really ugly postcard that she once mailed him with like a collage of all the pictures they have together. A very grainy, ugly quality. And she kind of just had this, like about this size of a postcard that she had printed out, and now she's torn it in two pieces. And she took medical tape. So she took some pieces of that, didn't even like clip them nicely. She just kind of like ripped it off of a roll and just stuck it on the back without actually like lining out the little pieces in the frame itself. It looks really ugly. I don't actually have a picture of it, but it's not super interesting anyway. So she did that, and it's still up there. I'm just going to leave it there because it's super ugly and kind of like represents her in a way, because this is what she does. She pushes everybody else out of the frame, and then the only thing that's allowed to be in the frame is her, and she's not much to look at. So basically that's what's going on there. Another thing, I have a phone set up there. I don't know if I already said that last time, but he was unable to use his mobile phone anymore. He just didn't know how to handle it anymore. And every time he would get confused, he would turn the phone off and on again. And then it would ask like a PIN code. And I eventually got the PIN code off of it. But by then he was already so used to failing to call people with that phone that he didn't trust it anymore. So I took the mobile phone with me, and now he's got a regular landline phone, and it's got I think I've shown that last time, a picture of that phone that's there right now. The thing is though, if it's without power for a while, then it loses those memory buttons programming. And one day he was convinced that he was going to go move the next day. So he went all around his room and pulled all of the wires out of the sockets and everything, out of the power sockets, and all the cables were basically, I don't know, all over the place, because he was convinced that he was going to be moving, and he was telling all the staff that she and her wasn't allowed to lift anything heavy, so they needed to bring people that could move all the stuff out and all that sort of thing. He even told me like the day before, it's like, oh yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow because I'm moving. And I was like, okay, well, let me know your new address, otherwise I can't find you. And then he's like, yeah, it's kind of like here, and it's got the same room number, and it's already got my name on the door. It's really strange. And I was like, oh, in other words, he's thinking he's going to move exactly here. So that's the thing that happened. And so when I went back, they called me on Thursday, by the way, that was a Thursday, and they called me to tell me that the phone wasn't working anymore. So I was like, okay, I'll reprogram the buttons, and I also needed to check the phone's operation in general, because they said they couldn't dial any numbers with it. And so I was like, okay, I'll take a look. So I go there on that Thursday afternoon. The thing with that landline is that it's connected to a modem of the provider. And if the modem hasn't been on long enough, then it hasn't like connected to the network yet. So they probably tried it as soon as they plugged it back in. I was like, okay, it looks like it's up and running. Oh, I can't dial anybody's number. That's weird. I guess it's broken. So by the time I got there, it had been reconnected for long enough that it actually did like call. If you could just like enter the numbers, you would get the thing ringing. I was able to call myself. And then I went and reprogrammed all the buttons, because there's like a whole bunch up there. There's like one with her picture, one with my brother's picture, one with my picture, and then a couple of blank ones in between, and a couple of blank ones underneath. And basically all the ones except for my brother's and mine picture, they lead to her number, just in case he presses the wrong button, so that he'll always be able to call her. And then that's fine. So I reprogrammed that, and that fortunately worked again, and he immediately, of course, had to call her again, blah, blah, blah. So that's been kind of going on. He's like continually thinking that he's going to go somewhere. She's announced that she's got her apartment up for sale, and she's also told him a couple of times that she's going to allow him to move into her new place. Of course, she'll deny this. She actually said it over the phone a couple of times when she thought that she had hung up that landline phone. And then she started talking to him. And so that is definitely something that I believe that she's told him. Like, he keeps saying like, she says that I'll get to live on the bottom floor, like at the ground floor, and she'll live on the second floor. And there's going to be a jacuzzi in the backyard, and this and that and everything. And it's going to be in this town. It's going to be in this type of house. And she's got all these demands that she has for this new place. And so she's already announced that she's managed to sell the old place, and now he's waiting for her to move so that he can move in with her. And of course, everybody in the entire situation knows that that's not going to happen, including her. And still, she keeps telling him that that's going to be a thing. And so he keeps hoping that the day will arrive where she's moved and where he can move in with her so he doesn't have to live there anymore. So he's not really settling in. He really feels trapped. He's constantly trying to find a way out. And that also leads me to what happened today. I had been there this afternoon just to visit him. Now, there was a special situation going on because they were working on the air conditioning units, and that meant that an entire section of the building had no power for, I think, a good part of the day. They were planning on having it back up in the evening, but at the time that I arrived, everything was dark up there. Of course, nothing works. I had just brought a fan for him because they had asked if we could bring a fan because, of course, it's pretty hot in there. And since they didn't quite have a sufficient air conditioning units available, they wanted people to bring fans in for their family members that were staying there. So I brought in one of those big standing fans that like rotates back and forth. So he's got that now, but of course there was no power, so I couldn't switch it on. But in any case, he wasn't actually in his room at the time because they had brought everybody down into the little cafe that's on the ground floor where they also do like all sorts of activities. And on Tuesdays, they have like a gymnastics activity. So he was sitting there in the group with the gymnastics people, or the people that were going to do the gymnastics thing. But he didn't want to participate because he really feels like he's not old enough for that. He thinks that it's only for the old folks to do the thing with the ball, that they have to pass it back and forth, and that they have to like throw these rubber rings into these hoops and stuff like that, like all the weird stuff that old people have to do. He didn't feel like he needed to participate in that because he wasn't old enough for that. So he thinks he's much better than everybody else who's there. He doesn't realize that he's just the same, except that he may be a little younger in years. Mentally, he's at the same level, but okay, so he's too proud to participate in that. But okay, so I sat there and waited for the gym thing to end, which was kind of fun to watch because other people were actually participating, and it would have been nice for him to participate because he doesn't move enough, so it would be great if he were actually to join in. But like I said, he doesn't feel old enough. So after the gym session, I go up to him and we spend some time sitting outside in the shadow just to enjoy the day. And the entire time, every couple of minutes, he is just kind of looking around like a little bit like impatiently. And I was like, okay, well, if you're ready to go, we can go visit her right now. Because he had called me yesterday that he wanted to go over there for a cup of coffee, like at her place. But I'm not going to her place, first of all. And if we had gone to her place, I'm pretty sure she would have sent him right back because that's what she did when he came over there by himself several months ago. And so I was not going to do that. So after a while of having visited him and gone up to the room to grab some ice cream, because of course there was no power, so that was all melting, and I wanted to give him some ice cream before it melted. He had some in his little fridge, like the little freezer unit inside of his fridge. And I went and did my grocery shopping, or I wanted to go do my grocery shopping. But I was driving on my way to the grocery store and the phone was ringing. Like it rang twice in my bag, of course, and I don't answer the phone when I'm driving. So I went to the parking lot of the grocery store and then I checked my phone, a number I didn't quite recognize, so I call it back, and it's the front desk of the care home, and they're like, oh yeah, could you come back because he's escaped and he's currently walking around the grocery store, like there's like a mall next to the whole building. But anyway, he had left and he was at the grocery store there, and they were asking if I could come back to try and help him to get back into the care home, because obviously he can't walk that far, but he was being very persistent and even aggressive. He had his stroller with him, and he had picked up the stroller a few times and tried to like swing it at the people that were telling him to go back, because he really was determined not to go back. He wanted to go visit her. So okay, I'm like, all right, I'll come back. So I drive back out. It takes like 10 to 15 minutes to get back. I go over to the grocery store and I see somebody there who is from the care home. And they're like, oh, they've already left over here. They've gone down the hall. So I'm like, okay, I'll go down the hall. Down the mall basically, and there's somebody else a little further away, like, oh yeah, they've turned a corner here. It's like almost a what do you call that, a wild goose chase, just going down from person to person to find out where he went next. And I found him outside of the mall. He had gone out one of the side exits, and he was sitting on this little wall thing with a couple other people there from the care home, and eventually there was like 5 of us surrounding him, and he had sat down because his legs had gotten tired. And so I was like trying to tell him that she's probably not going to be looking for visitors right now anyway, because it's about dinner time. She's probably making dinner, and she probably wants him to go back home anyway, and that type of thing. Just trying to convince him, like, maybe it's better if we go back home. And then during that little bit there, some of the people had already gone back because there really was no need for there to be 5 people surrounding him. So a couple of them went back to the care home, and then me with 2 other people were there trying to get him back. So while we were standing there, the beeper of one of the nurses that was standing there went off, and she's like, oh, that probably means that the power's back on, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to call me. So I was like, oh, we can go back to your room and you can call her because the phone's probably going to work now, and that type of thing, like trying to get him to move. And they had already tried calling her, but she didn't answer. And so eventually one of the care workers was like, hey, I've got a suggestion. Why don't we go for a walk? And eventually we'll go back, and then we can try your phone because the power's back on. Okay, take 2. The camera just stopped recording. Maybe it's out of power, although the battery looks like it's full. Maybe it's like on standby because it doesn't think that anything's happening. So we got him to start walking again, and he probably thought that we were going to walk over to her place. But when we tried to turn back into the mall, which is kind of like a direct connection to the care home, he's like, no, we're not going in there. You guys are trying to pull me back in, and I want to go visit her. You can go there by yourself. And he's like getting aggressive. He didn't actually try to hit anybody while I was there. So even though I didn't feel like I was super useful in that situation, maybe my presence alone held him from trying to swing at people with his walker again. I don't know. Either way, so eventually though, we managed to get him to sit down on a bench inside the mall because she had finally decided to call back to the nurse's phone who had called her in the first place. And so he was sitting on his bench, and of course she was telling him that he needed to go back, which is exactly what I said that she would say. And whenever anybody else tells him to do something, he's not going to listen. But if she tells him to do something, then that's what's going to happen. So eventually he was convinced that it was time to go back. And she assured him that she was going to visit him tomorrow. And I was just supposed to go have a cup of coffee with him at his room and blah, 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 that sort of thing. So eventually we got him back into his room, and indeed the power was back on, so I was able to show him how the fan worked, and so that's good. And I was able to reprogram the phone because of course it had lost all of its memory buttons, but at least it worked. So once I was able to reprogram the phone, he was able to call her again, and he was like calm and stuff like that. It's just really sad because she's made him so super dependent on her, and she doesn't want him coming over. As much as she pretends that she is super great at caring for him, she also doesn't really want him to come over. Like I said, he's done that before, and she's never once even brought him over herself. If she really wanted to give him a good time or something, she could come pick him up herself. She has a car, and then take him to her place and they can have coffee there. But she knows that as soon as she does that, he won't want to leave, and then she won't be able to get him back out of her house without police intervention and back into the care home, because he'll want to stay there. He'll think that that's like his ticket out of there. So there's no way that her inviting us over to have coffee at her place with him is legitimate, because she knows that he's not going to want to leave. So I'm pretty sure she would have just left us at the door at that time. Anyway, so that's the whole story. I hope that the timestamp thing worked, as you could jump around a bit to all the relevant parts and skip all the things that didn't sound too interesting to you. In any case, hope you're doing well. Hope to see you in another stream, video, or on Discord or wherever. And bye for now.